Hi, this is Kendall Boyson, professional life and recovery coach, and you're listening to Encouragementology, the practice of instilling hope. Hi there. Thanks for joining me. On this show, we are striving for a different vantage point as we rise above self-doubt, transforming shame into embracing confidence. According to a YouGov survey in 2018, about 50% of people reported experiencing self-doubt in their daily lives. That's a whole lot of insecurity. Is that what you see plastered all over social media? Vulnerability? Just another clue that what you see on the surface may not indicate what is really going on under the water. Add in that shame reinforces self-doubt, and self-doubt increases shame, and you have a tangled web to unwind. Self-doubt can create real challenges, both personally and professionally. It makes you doubt your abilities and holds you back from growing and achieving your full potential. At work, it stops you from taking on new projects or going for that promotion because you're convinced you're not good enough. This constant second-guessing can lead to major stress, anxiety, and even depression, making life a lot harder than it needs to be. It can also interrupt your relationships as you struggle to trust others and communicate effectively. In the end, self-doubt becomes a vicious cycle that keeps you from living your best life. I seek strength, not to be greater than others, but to fight my greatest enemy, the doubts within myself. Can you pinpoint when self-doubt crept in and wrecked your confidence? Shame might be easier to identify since it's typically linked to specific events that you regret, but doubt can be a silent thief, robbing you of possibilities and opportunities you didn't have the confidence to go for. Just like the settlers when they claimed new territory, let's put a flag in and start building a solid foundation of confidence as we eradicate shame and doubt. Want to hear from an expert who has done extensive study on the subject? Dr. Brené Brown is a research professor at the University of Houston, where she holds the Huffington Foundation. She is the author of 5 #1 New York Times bestsellers: The Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, Braving the Wilderness, and her latest book, Dare to Lead, which is the culmination of her 7-year study on courage and leadership. Brené's TED Talk, The Power of Vulnerability, is one of the top 5 most viewed TED Talks in the world with over 35 million views. She's also the first researcher to have filmed a talk on Netflix, The Call to Courage, which debuted in 2019. Let's hear her hack for self-doubt.
When something hard happens and we're captured by something difficult, our emotions get the first crack at making sense of something. A bad look, a hard phone call, a disagreement at work. We think that we're rational beings. We think that cognition is going to carry us through and make sense of it, but it doesn't. Emotions driving, thought and behavior are not even in the front seat riding shotgun. They're not even in the back seat. Thought and behavior in the trunk going, hey, and emotions driving. So the first thing we do is we tell ourselves a story that reduces ambiguity about what happened. So, oh, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not good enough to be here. Oh, in my fake story about you, yes, I did something that pissed him off. I said something wrong. I didn't do something right. Men and women who have the greatest capacity for rising strong, in the moment something happens, they hack into that neurobiological process of making up a story. They stop and say, wait a minute, what's actually going on here? What am I feeling? What do I know for sure? Because what is a story? There's a name in research for a story that has 1 or 2 limited data points, and we fill in the rest with fear.
Wow.
It's called a conspiracy.
As I mentioned in the beginning, it might be easy to put your finger on the event that triggered shame, but how did that manifest into self-doubt? Self-doubt often begins with a combination of internal and external factors. So here are some common sources. See if you're holding on tightly to any of these. Early experiences. Negative experiences or criticism during childhood, like overly critical parents or teachers, can plant seeds of self-doubt. Comparisons. Comparing yourself to others, especially in the age of social media. This can lead to feelings of inadequacy and doubt about your own ability or worth. Perfectionism. Holding yourself to impossibly high standards and fearing failure. This can create a constant sense of not being good enough. Failures and setbacks. Experiencing failures or setbacks can undermine your confidence and make you question your competence and your abilities. Negative self-talk. Internalizing negative thoughts and beliefs about yourself can perpetuate a cycle of doubt and low self-esteem. Unrealistic expectations. Setting unrealistic goals or expectations can lead to a sense of failure when they're not met, fostering self-doubt. Lack of support. Without a supportive network of friends, family, or mentors, you might struggle to maintain confidence in your abilities and your decisions. Trauma or stress. Traumatic experiences of chronic stress can erode self-confidence and lead to persistent self-doubt. It's important to find the root so you can effectively pluck it out. Never accept a behavior as finite. You can always unpack and put down this baggage that you carry with you that drags you down. Never stop searching, learning, and growing. You are worth it. Dr. Jeremy Sutton gives us more on the shame resilience theory, advice from Brené Brown, found at positivepsychology.com. Shame is something we all experience, not just those unfortunate enough to have experienced trauma in their lives. It's part of what it means to be human, influencing who we are and how we behave. And yet, most of us don't want to talk about it. We fear and avoid shame because it leaves us feeling uncomfortable and vulnerable. But that's a problem. Shame derives its power from being unspeakable, according to Brené. Ignored and avoided, it's become a silent epidemic, spreading fear and encouraging negative behavior and thinking. Brené Brown has been researching shame for more than 2 decades. When she began, she was told that the subject was too difficult and that it would mark the end of her promising career. And yet, she persisted, and she was right to do so. Her work has led to this pivotal definition of shame. Shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love, belonging, and connection. In her book, Atlas of the Heart, Brené outlines the 3 pillars of shame, the result of years of research, her own and others. We all experience shame. It's universal. It's a primitive emotion shared by everyone unless they completely lack empathy or the capacity of human connection. It's not easy to talk about shame. Even mentioning the word shame can lead to an experience of the emotion and evoke a strong sense of fear. Talking about shame brings a sense of control. The control gives us the strength to overcome our feelings and move forward with our lives. In fact, when the topic of shame enters the conversation, we often find ourselves at a loss to know what it is or if we understand it. Then we most likely don't want to talk about it. So if shame is all about fear, what is the cause? Well, while it's fueled by our sense of being trapped within such feelings, it's also the result of an unrealistic expectation. Think of a negative body image and the troubling impact of social media. Worries regarding disconnection from others, and an impossible mix of contrary choices. Be yourself, be perfect, look good, be fun. We're all capable of overcoming shame, though, building shame resilience. And according to Brown's shame resilience theory, SRT, we can learn and develop the following: a capacity to recognize our experience of shame, the ability to move through shame constructively, maintaining our authenticity and growing from our experiences, and a stronger, more meaningful connection with people in our lives. As Brown points out, shame resilience is not all or nothing, present or absence, but a continuum between shame, which is fear, blame, and disconnection, and empathy, which is courage, compassion, and connection. To understand how to move away from shame and toward empathy, Brene revisited her interviews with women to gain a deeper understanding of their experiences. The answers they gave recognize that empathy creates a hostile environment for shame. It can't survive. They went on to say that by sharing their experience of shame with others who expressed empathy, they were able to move forward. Empathy is central. We need to hear and feel someone saying, "I get it. I felt the same way. What you're feeling is normal. It's okay. I understand what you're going through." And according to Brown's SRT, such empathetic words must be backed up by the listener being fully engaged and present when the speaker tells their story. Ashamed researchers have identified that our sense of shame is widespread, even universal, and can rise from many different situations and events. These examples confirm that most often shame is associated with a past or a present that we had little or no control over. For instance, shame is my husband leaving me for my next door neighbor. Shame is infertility. Shame is flunking out of school twice. Shame is hiding the fact that I'm in recovery. Shame is bankruptcy. And the list goes on and on. And there will always be statements and beliefs that resonate with us, holding us in their grip. Shame and fear often walk together, hand in hand. The fire of shame is fed by silence, judgment, and secrecy. Left to burn, it can damage all aspects of our lives. And yet, it doesn't have to be this way. Empathy has the potential to put out the flames, turn down the heat, and stop throwing fuel on the fire. Vulnerability should not be confused or conflated with disclosure or emotional purging. Brene adds that believing that vulnerability is weakness is believing that feeling is weakness. Instead, vulnerability is the cornerstone of courage, resilience, and problem solving. And for Brene, recognizing vulnerability is far from a weakness. It's a part of identifying and understanding our shame triggers. If I acknowledge that being a good parent is really important to who I am, but also a vulnerable issue for me, it doesn't mean my shame around the issue will grow. Instead, we can use what we're feeling to seek out and utilize support, rather than letting it become a shame trigger. We must learn to recognize physically when we're in the grip of shame so that we can name it and find our way out of it. Often obscured by other painful and difficult emotions like blame and fear, these triggers can go unnoticed, causing us to react in inauthentic ways that only serve to exacerbate our shame. The messages and expectations driving shame are likely unrealistic, unattainable, and not what you want to be or what others wish for you. While awareness is about knowing that something exists, critical awareness is when you understand why it exists, how it works, and its impacts. Okay, now we have identified shame and self-doubt and the dance they do. How can we move forward? When you don't feel like you deserve forgiveness, it's hard to let go. People can say, "You're forgiven, it's in the past, no wrong is on your record." But then why does your mind and your heart still go there? Do you have painful regrets that are still stealing your breath? Gripping your stomach and fluttering your heart out of nowhere? Overcoming shameful feelings involves a combination of self-compassion, reflection, and proactive steps to build resilience and self-worth. So, here are some strategies to help. Recognize and accept that you are feeling shame. Claim it. Name it. Suppressing or denying your feelings can make them more powerful. As I mentioned before, reflect on the root cause of your shame. Understanding where these feelings originate can help you address them more effectively. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a friend. Acknowledge that everyone makes mistakes and has flaws. Identify and challenge the negative thoughts that contribute to your shame, replacing them with more realistic and positive affirmations. Now, I know this isn't easy because for many of us, our minds just go wild and we never intervene. But it's important to question yourself, stop yourself from shaming and belittling. Don't be ashamed to reach out. Sharing your feelings with a trusted friend, family member, or therapist can provide support and perspective. It can also help reduce the power of shame. It's important to set achievable goals and understand that it's okay to make mistakes and to learn from them. Avoid perfectionism. Participate in activities that you enjoy and that make you feel good about yourself. This can help shift your focus from negative thoughts to positive ones. And practice self-forgiveness. This can be important for past mistakes or even your perceived shortcomings. Understanding that holding on to shame is not productive and that you deserve to move forward. Be mindful. These kind of practices help you stay in the present and reduce rumination and shameful thoughts. Change the way you view the events or actions that led to your shame. Look for lessons learned and ways you can grow from the experience. And remember, if shame is overwhelming and persistent, consider seeking help from a mental health professional. Therapy can provide tools and techniques to manage and overcome these feelings. Kindred Cherry sheds some more light on how to forgive yourself, found at Very Well Mind. Forgiveness is often defined as a deliberate decision to let go of feelings of anger, resentment, and retribution towards someone who you believe has wronged you. While you may be quite generous in your ability to forgive others, you may be much harder on yourself. Everyone makes mistakes, but learning how to learn from these errors, let go, move on, and forgive yourself is important for mental health and well-being. There are 4 R's to self-forgiveness: responsibility, remorse, restoration, and renewal. Accept responsibility for your actions. Forgiving yourself is about more than just putting the past behind you and moving on. It's about accepting what has happened and showing compassion to yourself. Facing what you've done and what has happened is the first step towards self-forgiveness. It's also the hardest step. If you've been making excuses, rationalizing, or justifying your actions in order to make them seem acceptable, it's time to face up and accept what you've done. By taking responsibility and accepting that you have engaged in actions that have hurt others, you can avoid negative emotions like excessive regret and guilt. Express remorse for your mistakes. As a result of taking responsibility, you may experience a range of negative feelings like guilt and shame. When you've done something wrong, it's completely normal, even healthy, to feel guilty about it. These feelings of guilt and remorse can serve as a springboard to positive behavior and change. While guilt implies that you're a good person who did something bad, shame makes you see yourself as a bad person. This can bring up feelings of worthlessness, which, left unresolved, can lead to addiction, depression, and aggression. Understanding that making mistakes that you feel guilty about does not make you a bad person or undermine your intrinsic value. Make amends and apologize. Making amends is an important part of forgiveness, even when the person you're forgiving is yourself. Just as you might not forgive someone else until they've made it up to you in some way, Forgiving yourself is more likely to stick when you feel like you've earned it. One way to move past your guilt is to take action to rectify your mistakes. Apologize if it's called for, and look for ways that you can make it up to whomever you've hurt. It may seem as if this portion of the process benefits only the person you've harmed, but there's something in it for you as well. Fixing your mistake means you'll never have to wonder if you could have done more. Learn from the experience. Now, I know everyone has heard this over and over, but please don't let it become a cliche. It's an important step to keep you moving forward instead of repeating the sequence over and over. Everyone makes mistakes and has things for which they feel sorry and regretful. Falling into the trap of rumination, self-hatred, or even pity can be damaging and make it difficult to maintain your self-esteem and motivation. Forgiving yourself often requires finding a way to learn from the experience and grow as a person. To do this, you need to understand why you've behaved the way you did and why you feel guilty. What steps can you take to prevent the same behavior again in the future? Yes, you might have messed up, but it was a learning experience that can help you make better choices in the future. So what is it that makes self-forgiveness so difficult at times? Why do people often continue to punish and berate themselves over relatively minor mistakes? Engaging in actions that are not in line with our own values or self-beliefs can lead to feelings of guilt and regret, or worse, self-loathing. Some people are just naturally more prone to rumination, which can make it easier to dwell on negative feelings. The fact that self-forgiveness involves acknowledging wrongdoing and admitting that you might need to change can make the process more challenging. I can think of times in my life where I just couldn't let something go, and I kept playing it over and over in my mind, trying to look at it from different angles. Was it my fault? Was it their fault? Did we share something? Am I seeing it right? Was it really playing out that way? Did I just think I saw that or heard that? How many times have you just played something over and over again? People who are not yet ready to change may find it harder to truly forgive themselves. Instead of admitting that they might need to change, they might engage in a sort of pseudo self-forgiveness by simply overlooking or excusing their behavior. Letting go of the guilt you feel often takes time. Focus on self-compassion, apologize if you need to, and work on making amends. Instead of ruminating on feelings of guilt, focus on what you've learned and how you plan to do better going forward. It sure doesn't make it easy, though. There might be a number of reasons why you might be struggling to forgive yourself. It might be because you're worried about making the same mistake again. Or maybe you're worried about how facing your actions might undermine your self-image or damage your self-esteem. If that's the case, taking gradual steps to truly change can be helpful. The more serious your mistake, the longer it may take to move past it. Regret can be normal, but it's important to take steps to move past it. You might feel grief about what happened, but it's important to allow yourself to feel and accept these emotions. As you move forward, pay attention to the things that you're doing to change and learn from the experience, and focus on the feelings of gratitude for whatever you've learned and the opportunity you have to keep trying. I've always heard you gotta fake it until you make it, or a popular deodorant slogan, never let them see you sweat. Be strong, carry on. Well, where are all the slogans inviting you to be authentic and vulnerable? Admitting when you fail, or announcing that you just don't have everything figured out and you're not sure that you ever will. Well, these slogans and sentiments don't sell as well. Keep your tender side to yourself and buck up. You can't do it all. In reality, you're not expected to do it. No one is doing it all, so give yourself a break. Dig in on something you enjoy and master it. Get passionate about it, and if you're so inclined and you feel led, tell someone else about it. At the Thriving Center of Psych, I found understanding imposter syndrome, breaking free from self-doubt. Do you ever feel utterly incompetent and unqualified, yet you're in a position where you have all the experience and knowledge to perform well? It feels like everyone else knows exactly what they're doing, but you just don't belong. Imposter syndrome can make you feel like a fraud with no confidence in your abilities. You're not alone. So many people feel like this. The good news is that you can break free from imposter syndrome and overcome self-doubt. Here's how. Imposter syndrome, also known as imposter phenomenon, occurs when someone doubts their abilities, feels like a fraud, and thinks they don't belong. Despite excelling in certain areas, individuals feel like they aren't good enough and constantly have self-doubt. They worry that it's just a matter of time until they're exposed for who they really are. Although feelings of self-doubt can affect all parts of life, imposter syndrome is most commonly associated with the workplace. For example, you get a new job in a higher position with the experience, knowledge, and skills to be great, but you're waiting for your new boss to find out that they made a mistake in hiring you. Anxiety and insecurity are all part of imposter syndrome, with feelings of complete inadequacy. While imposter syndrome can make you feel like a failure, you're not alone. The truth is, you're not a fraud or a failure. One survey found that 3 in 5 workers experience imposter syndrome. British researchers polled 4,000 adults and found that women are more likely than men to experience imposter syndrome in the workplace. A study from KPMG found that 75% of female executives have experienced imposter syndrome at some point in their careers. Respondents say they believe that women in corporate America commonly experience it. Although it may look like you have it all together to the rest of the world, imposter syndrome can affect multiple aspects of your life. Anxiety can stop you from growing in your career. Imposter syndrome can lead to feelings of dread, shame, and confidence issues. The reality is that when imposter syndrome is left to wreak havoc, it can impact your career, personal relationships, and job satisfaction. Not sure this accurately describes what you're feeling? Well, here are some signs and symptoms of imposter syndrome. Downplaying achievements, fear of failure, anxiety, self-doubt, feelings of inadequacy, no trust in your own abilities. Someone with imposter syndrome could think the following: I'm not good enough. I'm a fraud and I shouldn't be here. What if they find out I don't know enough? It's difficult to say the root cause of imposter syndrome, but researchers point to culture, environment, and family dynamics playing a role. Initial studies in the 70s found that early family dynamics and gender contributed to the imposter syndrome, but we now know that imposter syndrome can affect all genders and backgrounds. Specific personality traits have been linked to a higher chance of experiencing imposter syndrome. You're going to see some repeats and some common threads here. Perfectionism. You think everything needs to be perfect, avoid asking for help, and put a lot of pressure on yourself to be perfect. Low self-efficacy. These people have little belief in themselves to succeed and see difficult tasks as threats to avoid. Neuroticism. A personality trait where you're more disposed to anxiety, depression, and negative feelings. There are tips for overcoming imposter syndrome and building self-confidence. The first step is recognizing the symptoms. When you realize that you're experiencing imposter syndrome, you can begin to understand its impact on you and start finding ways to manage it and reduce its effect on your well-being. It starts with self-compassion. Don't be so hard on yourself. No one is an expert in their job the first day. While you can be brilliant and have many skills that make you incredible at work, be kind to yourself. Set realistic milestones and goals. Accepting how you feel and knowing that you're not alone can be very helpful in combating imposter syndrome. And personally, many times we feel like we're the only one on the planet going through something, and that's just not true. People have a good way of hiding it. Even you do. Reframe your failure. Failure is an opportunity for growth. It's a big teaching moment. Often the most successful people have faced massive failures before finding success. Fear of failure is a big part of imposter syndrome. If you can reframe your mindset surrounding failure, it can help you learn and move forward. Don't beat yourself up, but adapt and learn. Practice positive self-talk. Self-talk is that voice inside your head. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, try saying, I have self-worth and deserve to be here. Essentially, you're trying to battle self-doubt and practice positive self-talk to train your mindset and adopt a more positive outlook. Celebrate your wins. Celebrating your success can be a powerful tool for addressing imposter syndrome. Whether dealing with imposter syndrome or not, recognizing your achievements can do wonders for self-confidence and create positive memories. Celebrating milestones can also help you retain momentum and work towards your goals. Seek support and mentorship. Whether you're experiencing low self-esteem issues, self-doubt at work, or going through a tough transition in life, seeking support can help. Seek out a supportive network, whether that's close friends, mentors, a support group, or a therapist. And again, let go of perfectionism. Typically, perfectionist tendencies feed imposter syndrome. Letting go of perfectionism is important in overcoming imposter syndrome. The reality is that nothing is perfect. When the only acceptable outcome is perfection, you set yourself up for loss. If you don't achieve that perfect goal, you feel shame and failure. While striving for perfection can feel like the right goal, it's often unrealistic, meaning you end up feeling even more like a fraud when you can't achieve that goal. Imposter syndrome can feel persistent and unforgiving. Despite proven evidence of your success, skill, experience, and knowledge, you still feel like a fraud. Accept that no one is perfect and start to share how you feel with those around you. It's easy to think you're the only one feeling this way, but many people hide imposter syndrome. Work environments that are closed-minded, cutthroat, and put extreme value on external achievements can make imposter syndrome worse. Breaking out of the cycle of imposter syndrome and overcoming self-doubt takes time. It's not something that happens overnight, but with consistency and practice, you can develop a more positive mindset, learn to embrace your self-worth, and move forward in your work and your personal life. If you want to share encouragementology with a friend who needs to know they're not alone in this journey of self-discovery, you can visit encouragementology.com or anywhere you stream your content to receive this episode and all others. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram for additional encouragement throughout the week. So I challenge you, embrace your journey of self-discovery, for in overcoming self-doubt, you unlock the door to limitless potential. Let every stumble be a stepping stone, and every moment of doubt a reminder of your inner strength. Rise above shame, because true empowerment is in believing in yourself fiercely and unapologetically. I know you can do it. Thank you for listening to Encouragementology with Kendall Boyson, where we find positive ways to handle some of life's challenges.
I stumbled through until the path was clear. That's when I found you and how I wound up here.